it wasn't just that I didn't enjoy working for a big corporate and being employed. I just didn't want to be employed at all. I wanted to be self-employed. I just had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no real clear vision of what I wanted my life to look like. So I started a photo booth company. I met her for coffee. I talked about what we were going to do with the project. I took her to the house and showed her it. Talked about us and what experience I'd had up to that point. My business partner's husband was going to be doing a lot of the work because he's in the trade, so talked about that. Whatever I did on that day, she said yes. She sent us the money. We obviously did all the compliance and the contracts and all that, because you have to do anti-money laundering checks on the money, so there's like a compliance piece of work that was done. And then she sent the money and bought the house. I've raised probably about 5 million plus since then in the last 4 years.
Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know I started this podcast because over the years I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps, and I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and today I'm honoured to be joined by Sarah Poynton Ryan from the Deacon Project, and she's also a property investor. So and developer actually. Yeah. So Sarah, if you could just tell us a bit about what you do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me, first of all. It's really, really great to be here. So I co-own a company called the Deacon Project, which is a lettings business. It was a business that was actually born in the middle of COVID. We had our own buy-to-let portfolio. We were really struggling to find letting agencies that wanted to offer us the service or provide us the service that we were hoping to find as landlords. So as landlords with quite a large buy-to-let portfolio, my business partner has quite a large buy-to-let portfolio, we decided to just start our own one. And since then, we've been gradually growing. We cover Northamptonshire predominantly. I'm based in Northamptonshire, so is my business partner. And we have built a management company there, and we're now scaling that at the moment. I'm also an investor myself, so I've got my own buy-to-let portfolio, single lets predominantly, and we renovate houses and we do all sorts of fun stuff with property.
Wow, you must be a really busy woman.
Quite a busy woman, but I've got an amazing team that do a lot they hold a lot of it together, so yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, and we'll look into that later in the podcast. Mm-hmm. But how did you start off in property development and lettings? Like, what do you do after school? Did you go to university?
Yeah, so I did go to uni. I didn't particularly know what I wanted to do when I grew up. When I went to uni, I went because everyone else was going. It wasn't really my plan. My mum was poking me to do something like tangible with my life. And I went to university, did a degree in design management, and that prepared me for not much, to be honest.
Is that what kind of design is that?
So design management's all about the management of creative people. So it's about, like, if you wanted to have a digital agency, how to manage the creative process, not necessarily be a creative. So when I went to find jobs after university, I couldn't find a job. Nobody really knew what I did, and I didn't get a good enough degree really to qualify me to. I got a 2-2. Me and Jack Daniels, we had a lovely time, but I didn't really learn a huge amount, to be honest. I had a lot of fun.
I got a 2-2.
They call it a drinker's degree, right?
It's like you finish, but I guess not.
You're not first. Really. Yeah, that's it. So after university, I started working, and I went into sales and marketing. Went into recruitment, actually, is kind of where I ended up. And recruitment taught me a lot. It was great for a little while, but I realised actually I was earning a lot of money for my employers, and I really struggled with the concept that I was there more hours than they were, and they were earning more money than I was, and I really struggled with that. So
what kind of recruitment did you do?
Temp and perm recruitment.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. And is that just like administration roles?
Commercial, yeah. So I did I did some blue collar, like warehouse type pickers and packers. But I also did call center, HR, right the way up to kind of senior management, commercial,
Oh, really? Okay.
to HR, all of a mixture.
How long were you there for?
So I started in 2008, just literally as the market crashed.
Yeah.
So really tough time to start. No one was hiring at the point that I started. And I built my reputation in the business that I worked for up to I was quite good at my job. I then left, so I worked for one of the big corporates. I then left to go to a smaller independent. And it was in that role that I realised that it wasn't just that I didn't enjoy working for a big corporate and being employed. I just didn't want to be employed at all. I wanted to be self-employed. I just had no idea what I wanted to do because uni hadn't really equipped me with anything. I had no real clear vision of what I wanted my life to look like. So I started a photo booth company. And
for like weddings?
Yeah. So hiring out to weddings and corporate events and things like that. And I started that in 2012 and built that up to a point where I could leave my job. So that was great. Left my recruitment life, started running my business, and my first business taught me every way not to run a company, because by the time 2015 came around, I was about 60 grand in debt. It had all gone pear-shaped. It was not going to plan at all. I'd had to go back to having a job as a consultant. And it was in September 2015 I got married, and I was talking to Andy about Andy's my husband.
Okay.
What should we do with our next chapter of our life? And everything just kept coming back to having no money. So I'd done loads of research into property, and I said to him, I think we should start a property company. And he was like, what do you mean? How are you going to do that when we've got no money? Because most people think you need loads of money to start in property. So I came back from our honeymoon and I started a property business. I started managing properties on behalf of landlords, and we kind of built it from there. And that was the end of 2015. In January 2017, so just over a year later, I sold my other company and managed to actually rescue it, sold it and got rid of the photo booth company. I'd obviously quit my job and I was full-time into property. 2017, I'd cleared all my debt, my £60,000 worth of debt.
Okay.
And then I went from there and carried on building the management company. I started an education company, and then we renovated houses and all sorts of other fun stuff. So it's been a journey, yeah.
Yeah, that's... I'm just trying to think where I want to start unpacking
that.
There's a lot. So what happened to the photo booth business?
I sold it.
So you sold it, okay.
In the end, I did. So in the 2015, so when I got married in September 2015, it was just a failing business. It was. I was using credit cards to subsidize the business. I didn't really know what I was doing. The biggest problem was I didn't know how to run a company. No one ever taught me that. I knew in recruitment, I knew how to sell, but I didn't know about marketing. I didn't know about strategy. I didn't know about operating a business, hiring a team. I didn't know about any of those things. And it just taught me a lot of lessons.
How big was your team in the end?
In the photo booth, there was me and one other person.
Okay, yeah.
Which wasn't enough, really, because it meant I had to do the lion's share of stuff. I had an administrator in the end. But there were no processes. There was no systems. There was no way of automating anything, because I didn't know how to do any of that. I was just kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes people in business, we are winging it a lot of the time.
Were you doing the setup on the booths, or was
everything.
Okay, wow.
Everything. So
long
weddings,
weekends, long nights.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, Sunday nights in some cases. We were doing corporate events. And I was also working as a consultant in Birmingham at the time. So I was driving, working up there in the week, coming back Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. And that was just my life on repeat. It was awful.
And
I also had no money to show for it, because the business wasn't able to pay me any money.
Well, this is it. Before I started my business, I was working several jobs, and in the end of the day, I ended up doing some really long hours, and for stuff I didn't fully believe in. And you've got to kind of do what you don't. You've got to learn what you don't want before you learn what you do.
Yeah.
You've got to. I guess people who. I don't really meet that many people that start up in business without any experience whatsoever. A lot of the time you need some kind of experience, even in working for other people.
Yeah.
In fact, if I hadn't been in businesses, by the way, I'm not slagging off the businesses I have been in, because I've been given some amazing opportunities in my career, and met some amazing people, and been taught things, and mentored. So I do appreciate that. But when you're a business owner, I don't know if you're born a business owner, but actually I probably knew I was a business owner I wanted to be a business owner when I was like 21 years old. And I didn't start a business till I was 29. And there was just 8 years of not quite fitting in or not quite doing
what you should have been doing.
Felt
like you should have been doing.
Yeah. So even though I was in some good businesses, I always felt uncomfortable slightly. And then when I made that change, but I think the other side is I've seen what businesses do really well, and I've seen what they do really badly. And when we started building a team and hiring staff, that actually made a big difference in our business. And I kind of focused more on things that businesses did well, not on things they didn't.
I think hiring a team is probably, most people shy away from it because they think it's an expense that they can't afford. And most business owners that I work with now, especially in our education company where we're helping people to grow businesses, I say to them all of the time, hire 6 months before you think you can afford them, because actually if you hire right, they'll pay for themselves anyway. And if everything's going through you as a business owner, actually you're creating a business that has absolutely no value to it, because you'll never be able to exit. You'll never be able to sell it because it relies on you too much. If you drop down dead, everything stops, everyone loses their jobs, everything breaks, and the only other way to lose, you can only sell it, exit it by going broke or die. They're the only 3 ways to exit a business, right? There's not really much else. There's one of 3 options. So I think people and having the right people around you is probably the best investment anyone can make in a business, because it's the people that will help you to scale and help you to be able to take time off and help you to be able to see the bigger picture. Without everything going through just one person, it's not a good way to own a business at all. It's not good for your head. It's not good for your health. It's not good for anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you recommend to someone, hire 6 months before you think you need it or you can afford it, you're absolutely right. But that person's got to have an abundance mindset. If you're working with a business owner who's overcautious, or they think there's a limited amount of business out there, then quite often they'll make decisions out of fear. And I see that a lot, actually, and just trying to help people understand. One of the best exercises I do with our clients is we use a business called Selector Base.
I know Selector Base.
Yeah, and they're one of the really good things they do is just they've got their counting tool. So like as a mindset exercise I do with our clients sometimes, I'll just say, look, this is the area you specialize in. This is the kind of business you want. This is the size of that business. Let's do a count in the area you service. And usually it'll come back to with like 3,000 or 4,000 hits. And then when someone is saying something as straightforward as, look, we've got about 50 clients, I don't believe we can get to 100. And then you can challenge them on it and say, do you really, based on that data, do you really believe you can't get to 100? And I think that can be a good way to sort of reverse that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you, I mean, apart from the financial worries people have behind hiring staff, what else do you think puts them off hiring?
Honestly, I think lack of knowledge of how to onboard somebody, because you have to train them. And I know myself, in my experience, I don't know what I do all of the time. Does that make sense? So I know that I can get the job done, but I don't always know the process that I go through to do that, because some of it's instinct, some of it's just what I think I should do. So teaching somebody else what I do instinctively is a really hard thing to do. And I think a lot of business leaders struggle with, how do you make something that's intangible tangible and turn it into a standard operating procedure and a process and a sequence and all these things. But actually, if you hire the right people and let them just watch what you do and how you do it, the right people will be able to pick up on what that process looks like and then be able to turn that into something tangible. I think I say to a lot of my clients all the time, you don't actually have to have perfection to be able to bring somebody in, because there's someone you're bringing in can help you to create the perfection that works with both of you, or even another, team of 1, team of 10, team of 100, whatever it is. In the early days of a small business, you're thinking about one person. You're not necessarily thinking about bringing in 100 people overnight. Once you get to 100, you obviously need to have processes and systems because they've got to plug into something. But at the start, especially with small businesses, can bring somebody in that can help you to create that. And I think that's often misunderstood. People leading businesses think it all needs to be perfect before you can bring somebody in, but actually bringing somebody in could help you to improve it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, we don't do it as much now, but we need to be on top of it. But one of the things we used to do a lot in our business was the first thing we'd teach someone, apart from how the hot water tap works and where the toilets are, is like, and the health and safety stuff. But one of the first things we'd actually train them on is how to write a process. And I guess the world's evolved a lot now, actually, because there's many ways to write a process, or video process. Even better.
It's an amazing way to do it, yeah.
Yeah, but we'd always focus on that first, because then part of our culture was that really you should only need to be shown something once, but you are more than welcome to ask as many questions as you want while you're being shown it. You're more than welcome to slow anyone down as much as you want while you're being shown it. And then you can just make some really good notes. I guess that's kind of gotten, I mean, we've got about 9.5 members of the team so far, and that's kind of gotten us to where we are now, because it's enabled like knowledge to be passed down. And we love checklists. It's that can be, so yeah, that's one of the ways I took my quality standards and helped other people in the business achieve them. Just like, when you finish a bit of work, check these. And then, the other part of that is, part of our culture, we expect people to have the integrity to actually follow them. And that's quite an important part for us. We do not like people signing off on checklists if they haven't actually checked them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you think one thing holding business owners back from really hiring staff is because they just don't really understand how to transfer their knowledge.
Yeah, I think as well, they worry that someone will come into the business and it feels messy because they're kind of in it all day. And it's like this not turmoil, that's the wrong word, but I remember when it was just me, actually it was all right for me to kind of be in my pajamas at my kitchen table, or, especially through COVID, everything was kind of very casual. God, what if I bring somebody in and actually they think that it's not a serious business, or they worry about that judgment. And I think sometimes it's important to know that without the additional resource, your momentum's going to stall. So momentum is only achievable. You can only continue your momentum if you've not got anything blocking it, right? So when you're a single person, you will create a bottleneck, whether you like it or not. Something's going to stop because you have got a finite amount of time and energy and headspace and all things. So if you want to see a business grow, you have to hire in resource or tech to help you. Now we've got the AI world is expanding massively, and whilst it's been around for a long time, businesses are starting to catch up with how you can actually integrate use of tech and resources in that way. So you don't necessarily need as much money to hire in support. You can use tech to do it, but either way, you need support. You can't grow a business without it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think a couple of the other challenges I've seen business owners have with growing a team is they can't let go of control. I struggle with it, but I'm a lot more aware if I'm micromanaging these days. Also, it's part of it's just understanding where you've got to give people breathing room, because actually if someone's relatively new to a role, you've got 1,000 things you want them to do. But actually part of that is sometimes you just got to let them find their way, because I guess one of the main causes of someone leaving is just if they get a bit overwhelmed. They can't see the structure to a role as well. I think, especially when you've got a new role rather than a role you're re-recruiting, you've got to really do a lot of work to convince that employee there is structure to it. One of the biggest lessons I've learned, like over the years, I lost a good member of staff quite a long time ago, just because she was the person we threw everything that didn't fit anywhere else at. And over time, we've realised, her leaving, we realised actually, there shouldn't be a role like that in a business. Every role should have that structure, and if there is a role like that, you've got to see what you can outsource, so you don't end up having that sitting in one role. And I guess so I think it is partly letting go of control. I did say there's a couple of things actually, but I'm just trying to think what the other one was.
I think the control thing, right? We naturally as human beings, we let our ego get in the way.
Yes.
Right. Be under no illusion that there's not people out there that are better than we are. Right. As a leader of my business, my job is not to be the best at every role in the business. My job is actually to hire the best people and empower them to do their jobs well. If and when I do that, my business will grow, our business will grow, the community will grow, the clients will benefit, everybody wins. If my ego is audacious enough to think that it is the best at everything in the business will fail. Right? I hire people who are better than I am at their jobs. So my ops manager, my customer service manager, our admin team, our lettings manager, I couldn't do their jobs. And I'm more than happy to say that I couldn't do their jobs. I don't want to do their jobs. I wouldn't do it well. They do it justice. I would not. I've got my role and I'm comfortable sat in that role. My job is also to lead the business at the same time. I have to let my ego know that I couldn't do the role of my ops manager as well as they can. If I've done my job right, I've hired someone who's better than I am at doing that job. That's your only role as a leader, is to make sure you're putting all the jigsaw pieces in the right place to be able to help the business to scale. The problem with entrepreneurs is we think we are the dogs, and so we let our egos dictate what can and can't happen. And actually what ends up happening is we get frightened of hiring people that are better than us because we're frightened of giving up control. We're frightened of being seen to be not as good as somebody else. Entrepreneurial people want to be at the top of they want to.
Hi, it's Nishi here. And before we continue with the rest of the podcast, I just want to take a few seconds to explain what we do. We're a firm of accountants and business advisors, and we are really passionate about helping people grow and scale their own businesses and achieve the lifestyle they deserve. To do this, we've created a series of resources on our website, unrelentingdrive.com. So once you've got a few minutes after this episode, it's definitely worth checking that out. And just a quick reminder, if you do enjoy this episode, just remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe.
You naturally fall. But if you let your ego get in the way as a business owner, you won't lead anything because you'll have nothing to lead.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. So actually, then that follows up to another really good question, I guess, is how do you recruit the very best people? Is it just about taking a load of money and throwing it at them?
No.
Okay.
So I think we recruit on values and human before we do skill.
Okay.
Skill can be taught, it can be evolved, it can be invested in, it can be improved. Someone's core values and how they show up can't be changed. Like how somebody shows up the day you meet them, how they communicate with you, how they, whether you can get on with them when you're in a room with them. All of those things are the things that matter the most. Skill actually can be fixed. So for us, well, for me personally, for the roles that I hire, which go through me, which is not all of them, because actually it's not my job to hire everybody, I would hire somebody based on values and their core personality and whether or not they align with the values of me and the business than I would on skill.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you think that goes both ways? Like if you've got a culture, I mean, by the way, this resonates a lot with what we do in our business. Mm-hmm. If you've got a culture-based recruitment process, do you find that candidates are actually inspired by that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people I've hired are people that have been either recommended to me or have come from people that I know that are doing similar roles in, like I've kind of found them as opposed to gone out and hunted for them. I think we get approached a lot in our businesses, in the group of companies anyway, for people who are looking for roles and they want to work for businesses like ours. So we're not a giant team either. So we've not had to recruit hundreds of people.
How big is the team at the moment?
So across the whole group, there's probably like 15 of us that plus our like trades teams and maintenance teams and stuff like that.
And what does the ownership structure look like? Is it you and a partner at the moment? Okay. Oh, it's just you at the moment.
Yeah, so the lettings business, I've got a business partner in. The rest sits under my, like the education company and so and my own portfolio and stuff is all me.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like what is the structure? So you've got your lettings company, you've got you've got a property development company, which is out, it buys dilapidated properties.
Yeah, it does them up and sells them again or rents them out. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah. And then you've got the training business, and then you're training people to be property developers.
To build their own businesses. So the lettings company, I have my business partner. She handles like the operational management of the team, lettings, maintenance, etc. I actually don't get hugely involved in the day-to-day running that business. I very much own the business, but I'm not necessarily, apart from our kind of core strategic clients, I don't really get involved with much of the day-to-day, me personally. Then I've got my training company, which I definitely am involved in day-to-day. I probably spend 3-4 days a week on that business, because I'm mentoring people. So actually that takes a lot of personal interaction and conversation.
And
So
is it all is it one-on-one stuff or is it leveraged?
it's a combination. So we've got a group,
Okay.
which is like an online platform where people can study digital content to be able to build their businesses. And then I also do one-on-one mentoring as well. So I've got a team actually in that business, a really incredible team actually. I'm the lead, but I've got an ops manager and she's got a team that report to her. We've got a team of coaches that deliver content for our clients. We've got a team of industry experts that come in and deliver their own. So we've got a broker, solicitor, etc. that all help support all the different moving parts of a property business. So in that company, there's a really good spread of skills.
Amazing. Yeah. And so what is that company called?
Cogito Wealth.
Cogito Wealth. Okay. And what's the vision or what's the purpose of the company?
Purpose of the company is to help other people that are in a similar situation to I was to get out of their financial situation or their employment that they hate or whatever it is by understanding investment and money better. And business. So my first business failed because I didn't know how to run a business. It didn't fail because I didn't work hard. It didn't fail because I didn't have a vision and I wasn't excited. It failed because I didn't know that I needed sales funnels. I didn't know that I needed customer service. I didn't know that I needed to do my bookkeeping more than once a year. And actually that's where, when you're new to business, no one tells you that stuff. So that business failed because I was still figuring out how to do it. And I ended up in loads of debt. So now we work with business owners who want to have businesses in the property sector predominantly. But we teach them not only the investing side, but how to actually operate a company, how to hire, how to build sales funnels, how to build a CRM system, how to make sure that they are onboarding investors in a compliant way so that actually they're not breaking any rules. There's all these different things. And
sorry,
that's what we do.
If I can ask a question, which might be a bit ignorant, but why do property developers need a sales funnel?
So it's not just property developers that I work with. So we work with multiple property strategies. So anything from raising private finance, lettings businesses, rent-to-rent companies, holiday lets businesses, people buying and selling property.
So like holiday lets businesses where they don't just stick it on Airbnb, they try and generate their own.
So if you're like a holiday lets business or a contractor business. So we, for example, when I was running contractor let accommodation in Milton Keynes, Network Rail would be one of our clients. We're having a sales funnel to be able to attract corporate bookings. It means you have no fees to pay to your OTAs. It means that you save a lot of money, you get a lot of word of mouth business. So it's just a better way to do business because you're building a company that's got direct clients rather than relying on a booking.com. So sales funnel would be important to be able to do that as just one example.
I completely agree. Like one of the things we're always trying to talk to clients about at the moment is, we're an accounting firm, but actually we're a business advisory firm. So all the lessons that we've learned, like building up this business, we make them available to our clients. And where businesses really struggle, where we've seen, is where they rely heavily on Google, where they rely heavily on pay-per-click advertising, and then before you know it, the algorithm changes, the fees on pay-per-click change, and it makes the whole model unviable. And one thing we're always trying to help people understand is have several top of funnel activities, because in the end of the day, like Google or LinkedIn or Facebook, they can pull the plug overnight. Build your own email list, because that's always yours. So I guess I think you're definitely right. Like I'm glad someone else is teaching people about funnels, because it is just too easy to go down the pay-per-click route.
And I think we don't really pay for advertising. It's not something we've done in our property business because we haven't really needed to. What we've done is double down on building the email list of ideal client specific audience by putting out free content, networking in the right places, getting word of mouth recommendations. And you ask, why would a property developer need a funnel? Well, they all need to raise money. They all need to sell their apartments once they're built, and they all need to rent them out.
So actually, the funnels for fundraising.
It could be for anything. You're going to need at some point an exit or a sale or a transaction. Sales funnels is what creates that relationship.
And you know what? And the other side is actually it can help you recruit as well. So
totally.
So Ellie, who's behind the camera, did you see a LinkedIn post? Oh, amazing. Okay, yeah. So free recruitment. It's not free. Like we invested a lot in our LinkedIn, but it is a better way to recruit, I think, actually. I mean, sorry to all the recruitment people out there, but it's obviously they do a very important job as well. But if you can put a post up and then get a candidate, it's like the other side of our marketing. But I guess we never, our marketing was always aimed at a certain target market, which not really the employee side, but it could easily be repurposed. But yeah, so it does make a lot of sense. Yeah, and actually, like property development, you do, unless you got a couple of million lying in the bank account, you probably do need people.
No one's got a couple of million lying in the bank account. No one with a brain has got money lying in the bank. Like so I've just finished writing my book, and it's all about money. It's getting released in September.
What's your book called?
Money Mechanics.
Okay,
it's all about engineering your money to work for you. And anyone with a brain is not sat with £2 million in the bank, because it's eroding with inflation. Your money should be put to work. Most wealthy people understand that actually cash just sitting around in the bank is not a good thing. You need it invested. It needs to be diversified. You need to be thinking about how you can get to your pot of money that invested will give you your passive income. And so, yeah, most developers aren't using their own money to build houses, flats, skyscrapers. Most developers are using debt to do it, because debt's also tax-free, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, perfect. And what other lessons did you learn? Like, I mean, it sounds like you've got to be on top of your bookkeeping, so essentially your finances.
Yes.
Definitely got to understand how that sales and marketing funnel works.
Yes.
I'd say most business owners I come across do not understand sales and marketing funnels.
No, I agree with you completely.
And I think the challenge is, like, a lot of business owners, they can be really good salespeople, because let's face it, the ones that aren't tend not to get through that initial stage. Or the early years, unless they've got a business partner who is, or unless they've found this amazing algorithm that they can just hack with minimal money on pay-per-click.
Yeah.
But most business owners tend to be reasonably good at sales, or they'll have some kind of network they can exploit, and that network will get them to a certain point, but then it won't get them any further. And then I think a lot of people I see sometimes fail to make that transition, because they're like, okay, we want to scale and grow, but just me doing the marketing and using my connections isn't enough. Me doing the networking isn't enough. And they never quite get to that next stage. Or worse, they'll go and spend loads of money on marketing, doing things that aren't really leveraged, where they're not building up a marketing asset. But then what will happen is then a lot of those things, that when they're not building up a marketing asset, quite often they get like poorer quality leads, which are more price sensitive, but they'll end up doing that work. They'll probably make more in sales, but less in profits. And then eventually things will just get squeezed to a point where their business implodes, normally when they can't pay their staff what they need to pay their staff. And I
think one of the biggest misconceptions about building a business is that if you just chuck money at marketing, you'll make money. It's just not true, because, and I say this to clients all of the time, if you can't close a sale from a free lead, what makes you think that you're going to be able to close a sale for a lead that you've paid for, which is probably colder than a lead that's come organically, right? Somebody knows who you are and is talking to you, and you can't get a contract signed, then you spending money on advertising is pointless, because a cold lead coming to you, you're still not going to be able to get a contract signed. So what was the point of spending the money? You need to be able to have the process to nurture the relationship to the point that it converts to a client nailed before you start chucking money at advertising.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Otherwise, it just is wasted money.
So you're like, build the funnel from the narrow bit up.
Yep. Test it, improve it, test it, improve it, and then launch ads to it. Once you've made some money, use that money to launch ads. Don't spend money you don't have on marketing campaigns that you don't know if they work yet. What's the point of that?
That's actually, that's quite good, because I did a bit of work in our business about 3 years ago. And I read a really good book, like The E-Myth Revisited, and Michael E. Gerber and his PowerPoint selling process. And before I read that book, I never quite really understood sales. And I really didn't understand how larger businesses did it either. But then that book just gave me that clarity. Like, and Michael E. Gerber's got that thing called the PowerPoint selling process, where he breaks sales down into all its subcomponents. And he talks about the importance of not rushing it. I guess 4 years ago, before I reread that book, I'd be like, hey, we got a prospect. If I don't try and land them straight away, we're going to we're going to lose them. Whereas now, what I try and do in one meeting, we've spread out over like, we still tend to have 1 or 2 meetings, but we've spread out over quite a few more interactions, and it just creates that nurturing, it creates that trust, and it's a really important thing. So, but you know what? We never really focused on marketing until we got that bit right.
Yeah.
And
Your marketing is important, of course it is, but if your process and your team can't generate money from the leads that you've got, chucking money at advertising, any sort of marketing campaign is not going to make you sell more. Sales and marketing are 2 very different roles. And if, I could go and generate 100 leads tomorrow, but if there's no one to pick up the phone and actually close them, we're not going to make any money. So I think I get asked by clients all the time, who should I pay for advertising so that I can make money? And it doesn't work like that. Adverts don't automatically lead to contracts signed. It's the bit once you've got the lead, like you just said, what you do with them once you've got that lead in the business, nurturing the relationship, whatever your touch points are. And every business is going to be different. Some need multiple touch points, some need one. But you need to know what they are. And you need to know the objections and how to not handle objections, but how to work with the client to help the client recognize that you're the right choice. And if you work hard enough to help your client realize why they should choose to work with you, you'll have earned the right to ask for the business, and then you'll ask for the business and you'll get it.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation last week with a business coach. He's not currently my business coach, but it was a little bit of a debate because I was saying, like, sometimes I'll have sales meetings with people who aren't our target market, and just for the practice. But knowing full well it probably won't convert. And then he was like, so you're practicing on people that aren't likely to give you the right kind of objections. They're not likely to have the right kind of conversation. And then I responded, well, soldiers practice by shooting at targets that don't shoot back. And I think he was kind of right. I do get it. But sometimes some part of the perfecting your sales, I've realized is just being able to go through that presentation multiple times.
I think it just comes down to time, right? If you've got the time to spare practicing on a different type of audience and so on, then do it.
Yeah.
I know for me, I wouldn't have the time to do that. Like I want to practice on real life examples of clients, because then I can listen to their real life examples of what is and isn't going to work for them. But I can understand why, if you've got the time to do it, then why that would make sense. I don't think I'd want my sales team to be ringing leads that would never buy. No, because that feels pointless. But I understand the point is that what you're trying to do is test stuff and play around with scripts and things like that. Actually, when I first started my first property business, we had a rent-to-rent company and we were ringing agents, and we were operating in Milton Keynes, but I didn't want to mess up and say the wrong things to the agents in Milton Keynes. So I would ring up north. Okay. And I would practice and I'd be like, this is what I want to say. And until I got to a point where my script in my mind was working, I could answer all the questions. And then I hit my own town. So it's exactly the same example. It was just really about getting my words in my head, how and why. But
to be fair, we never tried to generate clients out or leads outside of our target market. It's just I guess it's a net, and in an ideal world, you'd only pick up your ideal client. But sometimes when you get the peripheral stuff. But the other side is when you talk to enough people who aren't your ideal client, it kind of focuses you on why you like your ideal client. Yeah. So it's I only do it when if our sales pipeline is a little bit quieter in a particular month. But in general though, I get what you're saying. Practice on the people that ask you the right questions. So that business coach did have a good point. But the main thing is, I think it's just important to continuously have that conversation around sales. Yeah. And processes, and
I think people think sales is like an icky thing. Like people don't, especially if you're not naturally a negotiator or somebody who wants to structure deals. Like for me, actually, I see opportunity. I'm like, oh, we'll bring that together and do this and do that, and actually that will create a solution that someone will buy. And that naturally is where my brain goes with stuff. If you're not naturally a salesperson, in inverted commas, then a lot of people have this misconception about what sales actually is. They think that sales is a bad word. They think that they don't want to be pushy. They don't want to be seen as kind of inconveniencing people. They don't want to do the cold calling type thing because of all of the ickiness that comes with. actually, sales is the bloodline of your business. You don't sell anything, you're going broke. That's it. There is no other way. You can't make money unless you sell, someone signs a contract, right? It can't happen.
Yeah.
So you have to get comfortable being in a sales position or having somebody in your business that can sell. Somebody has to sell something somewhere for a business to survive. It's just that simple. The misconception around sales being a really horrible thing or icky thing or uncomfortable thing, whatever it is, people just looked at sales in a different way, which is listening to what somebody needs to fix a problem and then offering that solution.
Yeah.
That's sales. It's just the word sales is misunderstood. Sales done well in a service-based, solution-led way is one of the most incredible crafts that a person can perfect. And everybody should understand sales in business, I think, because it will be if your team, if you as a leader understand it, if your team can pick up on opportunities as they come in, you might get an email come in, there's a question from somebody who's bought from you in the past, there's an opportunity to sell something. Your whole team need to be able to recognize that opportunity and respond and potentially sell. Sales is amazing if you can get it right, but you don't need to be a pushy, icky salesperson to do it.
And when you're absolutely confident what you're selling is helping someone, like you mentioned, it does make it a lot easier because then ultimately it's not. I think people who do struggle with sales sometimes, maybe not always, but maybe it's because they're not 100% confident in their own solution, and really before they start perfecting their sales technique, they've just got to focus on the solution a bit more.
Yeah, ask yourself, would you buy it?
Yeah.
Would I spend my money on this thing? If the answer is not 100% yes, then improve it.
Yeah, until it is. Yeah.
Get it made like working better. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So Sarah, you sold your photo booth business in 2016?
17.
17. Okay. And then you went into you went straight into property development. Is that right?
I was in property from 2015, so it all kind of overlapped.
Okay, there was a bit of overlap, yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you, if you don't mind me asking, how because it sounded like you didn't have a lot of money back then.
I definitely did not.
How did you get your first project underway?
So we raised private finance to do our first flip, which was a flip in Northampton, actually.
Okay.
We bought a 3-bed terrace. And so between sort of 2017 2019, I worked as a consultant building portfolios for investors throughout the UK. That was one of the lines of the business. So I spent a lot of time understanding the difference between good and bad investments, what worked, what didn't work. And I would sell those contracts for a fee as a consultant. The first one that I actually kept and retained in my own business was in Northampton. I did it with my business partner. We bought it for 102, spent 50 on it. It's now worth nearly 300 grand.
Amazing.
Okay. So that was in 2019 we did that. We raised the money from an investor to do it. So the
just one or multiple?
No, just one.
Okay.
So the 25% deposit and the money to do, so the 25% deposit to buy it, so it's about 25 grand plus legals and the bits and pieces that go with it. It was about 35. We then had the development funding, which paid for most of the work. So it was about 10 grand. So we borrowed about 50 in the end. And the rest came from a bridging loan. And then we did all the work. We financed it. Actually, the plan was to sell that. The plan was to do a flip, but COVID happened right in the middle of the project.
Yeah.
Which meant that we couldn't sell it. The market was doing what it was doing. Our estate agents weren't even picking up the phone for about 6 weeks. It was an absolute nightmare. So we couldn't sell it. So we decided to just refinance it and rent it out. And now we've still got it, and it's now gone up by quite a lot of money. And we get really good rent on it every month. I think we clear something like £800 a month net on a single.
Oh, amazing.
Group. Yeah. So it was a really, really good investment, but it was all funded by an investor. We didn't put any of our own money in it. And once we'd refinanced it, we paid back the investor.
How did you get that investor to give you the money?
I asked for it.
That's a good point. But was it someone you knew or someone you?
No.
Okay.
Someone that was like connected on Facebook with me, but I didn't know who they were.
What did you do to reassure them?
Again, this is where like the intangible I was talking about earlier. Sometimes it's hard to like what you do with intuition, what you just instinctively do. Yeah. I met her for coffee. I talked about what we were going to do with the project. I took her to the house and showed her it. Talked about us and what experience I'd had up to that point. My business partner's husband was going to be doing a lot of the work because he's in the trade, so talked about that. Whatever I did on that day, she said yes. She sent us the money. We obviously did all the compliance and the contracts and all that, because you have to do anti-money laundering checks on the money. So there's like a compliance piece of work that was done. And then she sent the money and we bought the house.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
And we've done, I've raised probably about 5 million plus since then in the last like 4 years.
And that's amazing. So I guess that's where the credibility in the sales and marketing funnel comes in.
But you're right. The funnel in itself is a big part of that, but that nurture sequence. So they come in off a form online on our website, but what do you do next? Well, you need to have a discovery call with them. You need to understand their criteria. You need to understand whether you even like them. Because some investors I speak to, I'm like, I'd never work with you. I don't want to work with you. You don't want to work with me, and that's okay.
Is that because they don't have realistic expectations?
Some people are just idiots. Like, actually, some people you just don't connect with. There's just no vibe, right?
Yeah.
And, some people think I'm an idiot, like, I'm sure. But doing business is about choosing to do business with people you want to work with.
No, like and trust.
Yeah, don't do business with people that make you feel icky. It just doesn't work long term.
Yeah.
So that relationship building, I'd never meet someone at a networking event and say, "Can I have 100 grand, please?"
No.
I'd need to take them through a process, talk to them, have a coffee with them, talk to them about their family. There's a whole process to go through, and then you can choose to work with somebody. And I think it's one of the things we help clients to do now is to teach them how to raise money, and there's a process. It's actually just a process.
Do you think there's a lot more pressure on that type of sale now? Because I guess if the interest rates are going up, people are getting better return on what they save, and so the gap between the yield you get on a property is closing, isn't it?
I think yield is a different number completely. So if we're raising money on
the return,
it would be like a fixed interest rate usually.
Okay,
and again, our rates range from 4% up to 20%, depending on the project. So actually, an investor who's getting 6% isn't going to give us it for 4%. That doesn't make any sense, right? But an investor who's getting 5% with Barclays, I think you can get 5% on up to 5 grand with Barclays at the moment. Well, it's up to 5 grand. Anything above that is still only getting kind of a 2%-ish, not even that. So actually, if you can give it to us and we can pay you 7, 8, 9% a year for 5 years, actually you're still going to make more money with us.
Do you only ever work with private individuals, or do you also work with like institutional investors, like hedge funds or something larger?
Well, we work with bridging companies, so they are the institutional side. So typically, some of our projects are 100% funded by investors, because actually they want the security of that. If you are, let's say you were going to lend us money to buy a 3-bedroom terrace house in Northampton, for example, it's probably about 250 grand right now. Well, for you to have first charge on that property, you'd need to be the only investor, which means the institutional investor wouldn't be able to be involved. If there's a bank involved, a bridging lender or a mortgage company, they take first charge, which means your security is at a lower level than theirs because they're the senior lender. So it depends on the investor. Some investors say, I want to be just the only investor involved in a project. Others say, actually, I've only got 10 grand and I want to be involved in this, but not that. And so you have to have a look at what the project will and won't allow in terms of rates, security, options for whoever's involved.
What would you say like the biggest challenge with that you've seen in your industry really is at the moment?
I think right now in the current market, we can't get away from the fact that interest rates are a thing that's, in the property world, it's impacting everybody. The cost of materials, all that sort of stuff. I think for me personally, I've been on an interesting journey in a very male-dominated industry. I'm obviously a female, and I've hit quite a lot of blocks along the way in regards to being taken seriously. People have asked to speak to my boss. It's when I'm a leader of a company and you speak to an investor who's got more money than you've got and they're quite dominating in their way. I've found that challenging from time to time.
Do you feel they've been dismissive of your achievements?
Some people extremely dismissive of things I've done, the things I'm trying to do, the vision that we're talking about in the business, that I don't think necessarily would have been reacted to the same way had I been a man saying them. That said, I do also think as a woman in my industry, there's benefits to that, because there are also a lot of people who work with me because I'm a woman, and a lot of my investors are female because they connect with me and they can sit down and have a cup of tea with me and we can talk about like girl stuff, we connect it in a different layer. So it's definitely not a complaint I have. I feel like actually I'm not kind of downtrodden in the industry, but I guess what I'd like anyone listening to this to understand is that it absolutely can be used to benefit as well. And it's a real thing. It's definitely a real thing. I am aware of it all of the time. However, I think to a large part, I can ignore that bit because they're usually people I don't want to work with anyway. It's not really good energy for me. And I do tend to then attract a lot of other women who want to work with me. And that's great because then I can empower women to become more financially secure and independent. And that's important to me.
Yeah. Do you ever get imposter syndrome, or have you in the past?
Of course. I think everybody does. I don't think anyone could say that they don't. When I first started, I would have imposter syndrome over doing a deal that was £1,000 profit. Now I'm having imposter syndrome because I'm talking in like the hundreds of millions with people, and I'm like, oh my God. The business, every day I walk into my company, it's bigger than the day before. Every time I walk into it, it's the biggest it's ever been. The biggest team, the biggest overheads, the biggest everything. And I sometimes think, God, how did I end up here? I've just finished writing a book and I think, oh my God, I'm being an author. Who am I to write a book? Like, who's going to, hopefully someone will read it. But, actually the message that's in it, the message that I've got, the reason why I coach people and mentor people is actually, I think it's important that people feel more aware and understand things like financial independence, financial literacy, and basics around investing more, especially women. So,
someone wise once told me, might have been in a previous podcast episode, but if you're doing something where you don't feel like an imposter, it means you're not challenging yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like quite a substantial challenge to overcome. Like one of the things, it kind of I kind of understand, but I'm not a woman in a male-dominated world. But when I started this business, I was like 29, and the reason I used to get imposter syndrome was like a lot of our competitors in the accounting world. They were sort of like late 50s baby boomers,
the boomer world.
Yeah, and like a lot of them
all retiring now, right?
They're all retiring now, which is kind of good for us. But it's also the government's just made accounting a load harder as well. So that's that counteracts that.
Making most things harder, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And but yeah, my the way I used to get that imposter syndrome because I always felt like I didn't have the experience needed to actually grow that firm. And then I think really to deal with that, what I'd do is I'd just show up a lot more. So I'd work extra hard to build our credibility. Like, we're almost 10 years into this business now, and we're in a podcast. But like, if rewind like 9 years, and it was just me sitting in a sofa in our box room, just doing like little videos on there on my phone and editing them myself. So I think there's been a bit of a journey, but I've always felt like even from day one I had to build that credibility. And the only way I really knew how to build the credibility was through like content. I did eventually start networking, but I was still kind of got the imposter syndrome a lot through networking because I always felt I was like the youngest person in the room. And because business owners, they tend to be a little bit older. I know some younger business owners who've done amazingly well as well. But and there's a lot of mindset issues there as well, and preconceptions that I had, which I've been dealing with over the years. So I mean, my way of dealing with it was just create as much credibility as possible, and then also the other side of that was just spend every minute I could researching the industry, understanding how things worked. If I was doing a job, just expect that there was more to it than met the eye.
Always.
And over time, like we got to a really good level, and it was all of that. So all those imposter syndrome things can actually drive you forward to be better than any of your competitors.
Absolutely. I think like you just said, if you've not got a bit of imposter syndrome, then you're not dreaming big enough, right? In order for you to really be pushing all the limits of everything, you need to feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, because that's what's going to motivate. And I think, for me, I've got an incredible mindset coach who reminds me often that where I am right now, 5 years ago, I would have been like amazed to even think that it was possible to be where I am now. You know, if you'd have said to me in 2015, when I was sat with £60,000 worth of debt, surrounded by brown envelopes from the government and tax, and trying to pay weight, and me just drowning in credit card debt and loans and everything, if you'd have said to me then, you'll be a millionaire in a minute and it will all be all right, I'd have said, there's just no way. There's no way this is fixable. There's just no way. But as every step forward are taken, people underestimate what's possible if they just keep going.
What's the saying? People underestimate what they can do in 3 months.
They overestimate what's possible in an hour, but they underestimate what's possible in 10 years or something like that.
Yes, that makes...
And it's absolutely true.
A lot of sense, and I think, like for me, we've pivoted a lot in our business. Like, I could see in terms of the accounting industry, like, there's a lot of colossal accounting businesses out there where they've just got thousands of clients, and they're slowly unraveling from what I can see, because with the baby boomers retiring, there's just shortage of
opportunity for you to buy them all up. No,
growth
through acquisition.
I get offered so many, someone offered me, there was a retiring accountant the other day, and he was like, do you want to take this business on? And it was, he barely wanted anything for it anyway. And the one thing I did was, I was like, hey, retiring accountant, let's look at the clients. Oh, they're all retiring too. Do any of them use accounting software? Okay, we've got to set them all up on the accounting software. And I did a lot of looking into it in terms of alignment, and there was some good clients in there, and then we're working out the good ones we can take on, and the ones maybe we won't, because but the reality is we did a lot of pivoting, because just like in terms of what you do around the coaching, I really wanted, we save people tax, definitely, and we do it in a responsible way, and you can add value by doing that, because the tax is a cost to a business. If you lower that, you can increase the investment. That's assuming people don't just go buy a yacht or blow it on holidays, and they do actually reinvest it in business. But part of that comes from working with the right kind of people in the first place. But the other side of what I really wanted to do was all the processes and all the systems and all the techniques I used to grow my own business. I wanted to make that available to small businesses. And so that the last sort of 2 years has been like a journey to package all that up and say, okay, well, we do the accounting side, but actually it wasn't just, I didn't get to where I am just by filing my own tax returns. Actually, we did really good cash flow management. We had a business model as well as business plan, and we maintained that. And there was always this awareness of how we were currently doing, and we worked really hard to package it up and make it available. So we've done a lot of pivoting in terms of our firm, but in some ways we're almost a startup business again. So that kind of stuff your mindset coach is talking about. I've been going through that myself. I could have bought a small house for the amount it takes to get this podcast up and running. And because people watch this and be like, there's all this stuff behind, or actually a nice Tesla, but people can watch this and see, but there's all the stuff behind the scenes they don't see. There's 3 members of staff involved in it, all the equipment.
I think people in businesses people starting businesses rarely anticipate what's actually coming. People like you and me have been in business for a while. Most people listening to this who've been in business for a while know that business is not easy. And I think it's a common misconception that people think they'll just start a business and it will just be a breeze. They forget they have to spend thousands on getting it wrong to be able to get it right. They forget that they need people or tech or support or microphones or lighting, whatever it is that you need to be able to do the thing that you're doing. You actually need to learn how to run a business, and it's that behind the scenes stuff that gets in most people's way. I think not everybody's equipped to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. They're sold the dream of run your own business and you'll be rich in 5 seconds. Actually, most people, you have to learn how to actually operate all of those moving parts and have the budget to do it and the headspace to do it and the patience to do it. But yeah.
I think the way I've looked at it is it's a startup business all over again. Although we've got our existing clients and we've got our existing team, and then we've added team members, but it's kind of harder the second time, because the first time you build it all up, you go through all the growing pains, you're in a good place, and then an outsider looking in might say, why pivot? Why make a change? But I can see further ahead, the accounting industry is not going anywhere. The only way to succeed in accounting now is to offer advisory, help people actually grow their businesses by using numbers the right way, rather than just trying to get them some trivial benefits, or like shave £100 off their, well, sometimes we shave thousands of pounds, but the point being though is, like, when you really believe in something, when you want people to benefit from something the way you have, you do have to take that step back. You have to invest and then you just got to have faith that because you did it for the right reasons, then it will start paying off again. And I guess that's what this podcast is, because earlier in the episode, when I was talking about all the people that do all their pay-per-click stuff, and then the algorithm changes, or they get the customers that are just shopping on price, that was totally me. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I want to build a really meaningful relationship with these business owners, be part of their journey, really support them all the way through on the financial side. And the kind of people that were just phoning up asking for a quote on a tax return, it just wasn't aligned to that anymore. So we had to pull away from really mature marketing channels, and then re-attack it through content marketing, through the podcast, through our video channel, through our events, and all the other stuff we do. But I think Sarah, you were talking about, I guess I went off on a tangent about mindset as well, although we were kind of talking about mindset. So you've got a mindset coach.
Yes.
And are they purely a mindset coach, or do they coach in other areas for you?
She actually is a running coach as well. So she helps people to run marathons, which actually is all about mindset too. So she helped me do my first marathon. I've done 3 London marathons
amazing.
now.
Okay.
Yeah. Savage. Be prepared if anyone's doing it. Be prepared. Best thing you'll ever do, but also one of the hardest. But she's a running coach, and she's also a mindset coach. Okay. And so in business, she helps me with the days that I want to jack it all in and sell everything and go back to recruitment, which happens sometimes. I'm like, don't want to do any more. But she also helps me. I did a talk on stage at Earl's Court, and there was 2,000 people in the audience. And I was about to go on stage, and I was like, oh my God, this is the biggest audience. What if I forget what I'm saying? What if? And she just said, she was with me. And she said, what if it goes right? Yeah. What if you absolutely nail it? And I think, that remembering that you've put yourself in those positions to be able to progress, it's supposed to feel a bit icky, because that's how you're going to grow. Yeah. But ask yourself, instead of convincing yourself, oh God, what if this goes wrong and that goes wrong, or I lose money, or they're the wrong hire, or, I do the wrong advertising, or whatever. What if it goes right? What if it works? What if they're the best thing that ever happened to your business? What if that advert really, really nails? What if that new accountant is the right person? What if it's great? We are so built to ask what if it goes wrong from a protection, because our brains are there to protect, right? Freeze, fight, or flight. That's what our brain's for. But we have to train ourselves to be able to say, okay, it could go wrong, but what if it goes really well? What if that is the right thing to do? What if, in a really positive way? That is definitely what helps me. And I'm thinking, oh God, what if it all goes wrong? Well, okay, what if it went right? That this is the result potential, this is the revenue potential, this is the growth potential, these are all the exciting things that could happen. What if I do that thing and it's brilliant? And actually that really helps me in business and in my own life as well. I think that question's a really important one.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, people always think about the worst case scenario. They don't often think about the best case scenario, because they're just trying to be conservative in their plans. But being too conservative will actually just change your mindset, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think you've got to think about the most realistic scenario. Like, if you invest X amount in marketing, how bad would you have to be to not get any return? And then and then if you come to the conclusion, it would have to be impossible. It's almost impossible, because if you're doing enough of the right things, but also marketing is about like a lot of business is about just not giving up, because
Yeah.
in theory, you only really make a loss at the point you give up.
Absolutely. I mean, I invest in stocks and shares, crypto, property. I play around with all these things. You don't crystallize a loss until you bomb out, right?
Exactly.
That's it. And in property, I say this all the time with property people. They say, "Yeah, but what if you lose all that money?" It's really hard to lose money in property because it's in bricks.
Yeah.
Can't actually lose bricks, and if it burns down, it's insured.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to lose money.
And even if it's not insured, you still got the land.
It's still got the land, which you can rebuild. Like, there's options.
Yeah.
And when you're buying a house, it's been through a valuer, it's been through a surveyor, it's been through an underwriter, it's been through a lender due diligence. Like, it's really hard to lose money in property. So instead of thinking, oh God, what if I buy this house and it all goes wrong and I have to give the house back? Well, that's the worst case scenario. You have to just hand the keys back. You tried.
Yeah.
It didn't work. But what if it works? Most of the time it works.
Yeah.
Most of the time it does work when you try new stuff, in not just property, but in anything, in business. Most of the time it works out really well. Yeah, we've all got those stories where it's gone horrendously wrong. I've got them. I've lost money. I've put my money into a foreign exchange fund and lost $5,000 on one day. Like, I've done all of the things that have gone wrong. But there's still way more things that have gone right than have ever gone wrong.
I don't know if this is the right way to look at it, but so I'm a chartered management accountant, and when I was doing my qualification, like, one of the things we really looked at as part of the management modules was what we call the barrier to entry. And I mean, it's been over probably 16 years now, but like,
you don't look old enough to have studied 16 years ago.
Wow, thank you. I don't know. I guess you can look at my Facebook and I'll tell you how old I am, but I'm getting on a bit. I guess if I started this business when I was 29 and we're almost 10 years older. But
are you 40 this year?
No, not this year. Next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm this year.
Oh, amazing. Okay. I'm a chartered management accountant, and one of the things that really stuck with me from what I learned in the qualification was they talk about the barrier to entry, and in terms of mindset, it's a really important one for me, because like, there was probably a time when, like, if something went wrong in the business, or if something was really, really difficult to achieve when we were creating a new system or process or project in the business, a bit like the podcast, I'd sometimes let it get to me. But actually now what I think is, if it's hard for us, like, then it's much, much tougher for someone else trying to follow in our footsteps. And I don't believe in pulling up the ladder behind you. I don't believe in having glass ceilings. I think everyone should be able to excel and have opportunities to develop and reach their full potential. But what I also think, though, is actually there are times when you don't want it to make it too easy for your competitors to just sprout up, because if you end up investing a lot into making something really, really good, then it's still important to have competitors, because they're the ones that drive you forward a lot of time. Well, they drive you forward, your vision pulls you. And that's really, really important. But actually, like, I've always found it reassuring that, when we go through like some kind of hardship, like, especially to start this podcast, I think people watching it might just see it as like something we put together on a few cameras, we had so many setbacks just with the podcast. Like, we ended up, we had like terrible software, so we got better software, and then the computers couldn't cope, and then when we got better computers, the internet couldn't cope, and now we're having better internet fitted tomorrow. But sorry, not internet, broadband. And then all the challenges of getting the right kind of microphones and sound set up. So this is the first podcast we're actually doing on the new microphones. But with all the challenges that we face, like setting it up, it's sometimes all you need is members of your team that just stick with it, that don't get disheartened. But also, you've also got to have that patience with members of the team as well. Know when they're like learning something and they're pioneering something for the first time, trying to back off and give them that space. But it's been like what you're saying in terms of, when it goes right. I think thinking about the best case or most likely scenario, that's a huge mindset thing in business. And I think it's really important. But also just understanding actually some things in business are meant to be really, really hard, because you're creating and building an asset, and if everyone could just create and build that asset really easily, then the asset you're creating and building wouldn't be worth as much. There's probably a lot more people out there who want to buy good quality businesses than there are good quality businesses for sale. And if there was lots of good quality businesses of sale, actually they might only be worth half the amount, and your nest egg might only be worth half the amount. So I do definitely resonate with what you're saying in terms of think about the best case scenario, and I'll just add that.
Yeah, I think the what if it goes right is just a question that everybody should get used to asking themselves in any capacity. What if it goes really well? What is the outcome? What could that look like? How will I feel? Who else? How will the rest of the team feel? I think if you can just get into the habit of anytime you say, "Oh God, what if it goes wrong?"
Yeah.
Be okay with exploring that, but then ask yourself, "Okay, now what if it goes right? What does that look like?" And if people can get more into the habit of that, we'd have happier business owners.
Yeah. So what other mindset lessons have you learned for business?
It's business, it's not personal.
Okay.
I think that's a lesson I've definitely learned the hard way a couple of times, but have now kind of become much more aware of it. Um, you know, people make decisions in business because it's right for the business. It's right for the, the choosing a supplier, for example, choosing the tech that you're going to use, a client choosing to work with you or not work with you. It's actually not personal. It feels personal, but it isn't. And if you can get over your ego for a minute and realize that it's just business and business is business, it isn't personal, then life becomes much easier. You'll be able to make decisions easier. You'll be able to let people go quicker. You'll be able to cut dead wood quicker. You'll be able to stop spending when you shouldn't be. It will help you to make decisions faster. It's business and it's not personal. Again, don't let your ego get in the way of a lot of the things.
Yeah. How important would you say surrounding yourself with the right people is? Like, what do you do for your network?
Like essential. It's not really I've been just me on my own in my garage with my cats. I've been that business owner and I was miserable. I was not very good. My business failed because I didn't know who to ask for support or get advice from or reach out to. And now I've got a group of companies that I'm surrounded every day by people who are incredibly good business people, and I seek advice from them often. So there's definitely power in that knowledge that sits in other people's brains. So my friends and my business partners are essential to my success. Without my team, I call them the glue that holds everything together. Like I can lead, but without them holding all of my moving parts together, it doesn't happen, right? So my network, my friends, my mentors, my mindset coach, my actual in-house team, our external team, everything, my family, my friends, everything. Without those people, I would break. So people trying to do what we do as entrepreneurs without a good network of people they can get support from will struggle.
Well, most business owners do, because I guess if you're self-employed, you're 1 in 6 people. And then if you're actually building a business with staff and a sales and marketing funnel, you're 1 in 6 of those, really. So you're like 1 in 36 people. I'm just trying to remember where I read that stat, but I'll put it in the comments or something. But it's most business owners, they find it very difficult to build that network, really. And so I think, maybe people underestimate the amount of effort needed to that goes into just finding the 5 people you need to surround yourselves with.
And I say all the time to my clients, like, listen to people who are on the field playing the game with you, not people standing in the stands watching the game. Like, like when the World Cup's on and everyone's screaming at Ronaldo to do the thing, whatever it is that they do. I'm not really a football person, but I know who Ronaldo is just about. And Ronaldo doesn't care about what the people in the stands are shouting. He's just doing his job. And all he cares about is what's happening in front of that goal, to be able to make that goal a thing. He's listening to those people. He's working in that space. Some people would argue that he doesn't listen at all, but you know my point, right? He's not listening to the people that are in the stands. He's just worried about what's happening in the game. I think entrepreneurs worry about what people who are in the stands are saying about their game. Oh, there's no money in property anymore. I hear this all the time. Okay, that's fine. You carry on. I'll carry on. That's all good. Don't start a business. It's really risky. It's no more risky than having a job. If anything, it's less risky than having a job.
Yes.
Because you're in control of it.
And also, like, when you've got a job, you've just got one big customer.
One single point of failure, one big customer who can change their mind at any time, potentially, depending on who your employer is, right? People worry about what other people think way too much. What other people think, when I first started my business and a lot of clients of mine I work with, they say, oh, well, my husband says this, or my wife says that, or my parents say this, and they think that I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, or it's too risky, and these sorts of things. Don't invest in the stock market, it's terrible. Don't invest in crypto market, it's terrible. People saying that the crypto world is the most riskiest, crazy place to be are people that aren't investing in crypto. People that are saying the stock market is the terrible place to put their money aren't investing in the stock market. They read what the media tells them about those things, and they are shouting from the stands at someone playing the game.
I think the only caveat to that would be, because I've always said to people, hey, don't invest in stuff you don't understand.
100%.
So if you do want to invest in crypto, take the time to
take £5 and invest it and test it.
Yeah.
Don't put all you've got in it. Like, if you're going to invest in something you don't understand, the best way to learn is to do, but don't invest in things you don't understand with everything you've got. Diversify, right?
Yeah.
I've made money and lost money in crypto. I've made money and lost money in Forex. I've made money and lost money in property. I've made money and lost money in business. I've made money and lost money in everything I've ever done. But that's part of the game we play, right? As an investor, that's part of what I choose to do. I think the coming back to the network, which was the principle of this, is don't listen to the guy in the pub who's never bought a house tell you how risky property is. Talk to other property people. Surround yourself with other people that are doing similar things to you or what you want to be doing. If you want to start an accountancy firm, don't listen to people that have never started an accountancy firm, never trained as an accountant. Listen to other accountants about what's happening in the market. Listen to, podcasts like this. But actually put yourself in a place where you can listen to what's happening on the field, on the game, rather than people outside shouting at the game, because they actually don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Do you sometimes look at business as property? Like, one of the examples I always use when I'm talking, helping people understand how business is built and valued for sale, is that I talk about houses. I talk about the blueprints being the business plan. I talk about the foundations being like your culture and your customer avatar, things like that. Is that how, do you see it in a similar way, or do you view property and business like very separately?
No, I mean, I don't see it in this. I wouldn't describe it in the same way that you have, although that makes total sense to me. What you've just said there makes perfect sense. I think the rules of business are the rules of business, and you can apply those rules to any business. I just happen to apply them in the property industry. But actually, I could take the rules of business. Now I know what they are, and I've learned them, and I know who I need. I know what professional skills I need, like professional services, accountants, solicitors, all those things. I actually think I could take those rules and apply it to any business.
And more importantly, take your network and apply them to any business. Yeah. Okay, amazing. And Sarah, you mentioned earlier you did you just say you've just published your book?
No, I've just finished writing. It's in proofreading at the minute. It's going live on the 7th of September.
Okay, and what is that book called?
It's called Money Mechanics.
And where will it be on Amazon?
Amazon, yeah.
Okay, amazing. Is there going to be a paperback version of it?
I can send you the link to put in the notes for the waitlist. So
okay.
If people want to sign up for the waitlist to get a copy when it goes live, they can. I'll give you the link for it.
It's Money Mechanics. Does that kind of echo your coaching program?
No, totally separate actually. So the coaching business is all around property.
Okay.
The book is actually all about money.
Is it a bit like a new version of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
It's not. I mean, I guess if. Potentially, but it's
so
more,
I'm oversimplifying it.
Yeah, I think the key for me, I think financial independence is what everybody should have, right? And I think a lot of people think that financial independence is further out of reach than it actually is. I've talked about this in the book, but if all parents, when children were born, put literally £100 at the point that they were born and £25 a month until they're 25, most kids could be handed a fund that's worth hundreds of thousands of pounds to be able, depending on the risk level, be able to buy them a house and a car and pay for their university. Actually, we shouldn't have mid-20s with loads of student debt and struggling at such an early point. And actually, if people understood how money worked better, actually we wouldn't have the issues that we have. And so the book is actually about that. It's about normalizing the conversations around basic financial management, debt management, money management, investing basics, so that normal people can become financially independent. I'm not talking about making people rich or wealthy. That's the next bit. But to put people in a position where they can make decisions on their life from a place of choice, not a place of if I do this, or I I can't leave my marriage because I can't afford to. I can't leave this job because I can't afford to. I can't go traveling because I can't afford to. I can't not marry this guy because I can't afford to not marry this guy. That shouldn't be how we live our lives. That we should be able to make choices based on what we want, what matters to us, and what's true. And I've been the girl who's not been able to do the thing because I couldn't afford not to do the thing. And I don't think anyone should be in that position. So the book is about helping people understand that you don't have to be rich to invest. You can invest with a tenner and become financially independent quicker than you imagine. So that's what I wrote the book about. It's about engineering your money, the money that you've got, to make your future more financially stable.
Okay, wow, that's absolutely amazing. It's and I'll look forward to seeing that come out and reading it. It's well, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us on the episode. You've been listening to Unrelenting Drive, so keep watching for the upcoming episodes, and check out our website, unrelentingdrive.com, for some amazing content to help you grow and scale your own business.